It started, as most difficult things in my life seem to have started, at the dinner table of my parents' apartment. Dinner was a ritual more than a meal in our family: no phones, no television, and everyone was expected to arrive on time. The Wednesday before Christmas, the city outside had been softened by a slow drizzle, everything wet and shimmering orange under the harsh streetlights. Layet, my younger cousin, used the rolled-up edge of his napkin to dab at beads of sweat clinging to his brow. We were 15 people crowded around a heavy table built for 12, and the air smelled of roasted pork and maracuja. My father lifted his glass. "Let's congratulate Lucas," he said, his baritone rolling across the table. "He's finished with college, finally." I had graduated from USB with a degree in engineering. The pride in his voice would have been enough to warm me if my path had ended there. But I'd been waiting for this night, both dreading and longing for it. I'd spent days rehearsing my words to the rhythm of Sao Paulo's traffic, planning my tone, the confidence, the upward curl of the word startup at the end to suggest positivity. I took a breath. "I want to tell you all something," every pair of eyes closed in, seeking a target. "I'm not taking that job at Siemens," I said, one voice cracked, but I pressed on. "I'm starting my own company. Software automation, focusing on workflow for logistics and delivery companies. It's called Agiliza." There was a pause just long enough for shame to slip in sideways. Diego, my uncle, was the first to laugh. "You can't be serious. You're going to throw away a career for, what, another one of these app things?" My mother's face pinched in disbelief. She wasn't angry yet, just afraid. Her hands found each other underneath the table. "You have no investors," she said, as if I'd announced I'd try to fly under my own power. "No security. This city doesn't forgive mistakes, Lucas." My father tried to put a damper on the discussion. "He's smart, let him try. But do you really think someone from Arbeiro is going to beat the big companies? Sao Paulo has 1,000 startups every day. Who's waiting for your idea?" Layet joined in, emboldened by laughter. "You think you're going to be the next Steve Jobs, is that it?" My cheeks burned. All I could do was chew my lip and push down the urge to defend myself, as if raising my voice would only prove their point. I wanted them to understand how real it all felt, my co-founder Teresa and I mapping out our unpolished prototype, the possibilities, but the magic didn't translate. It sounded childish against their questions about health insurance and salaries, about rent, and what if the platform gets hacked. I couldn't answer in a language they would trust. The night ended with my father patting my shoulder, half wishing me luck and half bracing for the inevitable phone call home. I tried, but it didn't work. Shame followed me all the way back to my flat in Muka, pressing on my spine. That was the night I started talking less, working more. The first year was mud and rain, constant effort, little to show. We worked in Teresa's cramped living room, our screens glowing against brick walls. We lived on pão de queijo and bitter instant coffee that left a chemical taste in my mouth. It was one thing to dream among strangers at hackathons. It was another to confront the bare panic of spending our savings and waking up with nothing to show but error logs. My mother texted every Sunday, "Are you eating? Can I bring anything?" But she never asked about Agiliza. My father stopped mentioning my career, talking vaguely about my projects to friends. When I called home, the silence after I described a small win, a signed pilot, a potential investor meeting, felt less like encouragement, more like waiting outside a locked door. We cold emailed 50 logistics companies before anyone responded. Most didn't finish reading our sentences. The few meetings we landed ended with polite nods. I listened to CEOs say things like, "We already use SAP," or "Your team is just 2 people." Teresa handled rejection like Sao Paulo rain, let it soak through, shrugged out her coat and started again. "What's the point," she'd say, "if we do what everyone else expects?" I envied her. Shame wore on me differently. I let it knot my stomach, whisper in the background of every pitch call, every time I opened LinkedIn and saw classmates promoted to cushy jobs, vacationing in Rio or Buenos Aires. My hands shook before meetings with potential clients. I'd remember Layet's laugh, the echo of my mother's doubt. The only escape was work, fixing bugs, updating our demo, rewriting emails. The city became scenery passing by the window as we rode crowded buses to and from meetings, our product pitch slides crinkled from the rain. The second year, Teresa's boyfriend left, fed up with the nights she spent coding. My own social life withered to monthly drinks with 1 or 2 friends, but even those evenings I felt like an actor, talking about my project instead of my failures. Once, after a bad meeting, I ducked into the train station bathroom and let myself sob over a broken soap dispenser. The mirror showed the toll, the hollow cheeks, the worry, but then we landed a pilot client. A mid-sized e-commerce company struggling with delivery delays. We imitated calm as we installed our beta software on their battered warehouse PCs, coded like maniacs when it crashed, and held our breath each week as their metrics improved. Their managers grumbled less. One told us the software had shaved 2 hours off each shift. The following spring, the company paid for a full subscription. It was a small sum, but it was real. After that, referrals began. We were still scraping for runway, but the shame slid slowly away, replaced by a kind of stubborn courage inside me. I stopped reading uncertainly when people asked what I did. I said, "I'm a founder." Sometimes I even believed it. The seed investment we won in year 3 felt surreal: 40 pages of legal documents, evenings spent deciphering equity terms, investors who asked better questions but still looked at us like children playing grown-up. But we took the money, moved our operations to a 6-desk coworking space with a bay window and the distant rumble of Avenida Paulista. For the first time, my bank balance wasn't sinking every week. My mother called less now, as if leaving me alone made stress somehow lighter. We hired our first 2 engineers. I learned to become a manager badly at first, micromanaging and over-explaining until Teresa pulled me aside. "If you don't trust them," she said, "they'll stop trusting you." I apologized. We stumbled, we recovered. By the 5th year, we had a real company, 12 employees, paying customers across Brazil, software now bursting with features we'd once only dreamed of. Agiliza had become something more than a line in a deck. It was busy, alive. Old friends from USB began reaching out, curious now, asking about opportunities. LinkedIn messages had shifted from polite confusion to real interest. Sometimes I reread those first rejection emails for motivation, laughing at how close I'd come to giving up. But not once did I visit my parents' apartment. It wasn't anger exactly, just distance and the awkwardness of knowing they talked about me, but only in the smallest, safest words. When I called home, my mother always asked if I'd found something stable. My father asked how the job search was going. It was Teresa's idea to launch our biggest update at a public demo in the city, live, with partner customers and press. "Sao Paulo is Agiliza's heart," she said. "We should let the city see us for real." I knew what she was asking without directly saying it. It's time to come home. So we booked out a space in Centro, off Praça de Sé, with its colonial stones scrubbed by rain and old churches standing sharp against towers of glass. The team spent weeks assembling the details, inviting clients, press, local officials, preparing the software demo to run flawless. Even among all that, it was my parents' invitation that felt hardest. I printed it with deliberate care, folding the envelope stiffly. Teresa watched me slip it into my bag after work. "Whatever happens, we're ready," she said. I delivered the invitation in person, standing in my parents' familiar hallway, still painted a peeling yellow, smell of garlic and bleach. My mother's eyes widened on the card, then she handed it to my father as though passing a message she couldn't read aloud. "Software demonstration?" he asked, cautious. "Why would we come?" I found my voice, steady now from years of practice. "Because it matters, I want you there." The demo day arrived like a thunderclap. I wore a jacket that still bore creases from the dry cleaner. Teresa and our team hustled through the hall, laptops tucked under arms, cables hunched like nervous snakes under the demo tables. I pretended calm while the city hammered outside, honking brakes, the tide of people spilling through the doors. We'd as much a crowd as I dared hope. Our clients, maybe 40 in all, startup founders, a handful of press, some city officials. My parents arrived quietly, slipping in at the back. My mother wore her nervous church outfit, pinched at the waist, her eyes darting from guest to guest. My father stood beside her, hands clasped as if over an invisible briefcase. I found them before the show began. My mother hugged me stiffly. She didn't smile. "So many people here for computers," she whispered. I grinned, nerves simmering. "I'll explain everything." I took the stage after brief introductions. Teresa had insisted I speak first, knowing how much this would mean. The microphone hummed. I could feel the familiar heat under my collar, but the faces out there were different. Clients we'd helped, partners who'd believed. My parents' eyes met mine, anxious. I talked them through Agiliza's evolution, real stories from clients, warehouse managers who cut delivery times by half, software that mapped Sao Paulo's chaos into usable data. Screens displayed live, our system updating driver routes on the fly as traffic cascaded across the city. I saw the heads nod, the managers smiling at features they'd requested over years of calls. Still, the real test was the demonstration. We pulled up a complex, real-time simulation, a Sao Paulo pharmacy with dozens of motorcycles, hundreds of deliveries, traffic spikes. Our software juggled it in milliseconds, allocating routes, updating projections. Screens flashed new assignments. A manager from our original client stepped forward, microphone in hand. "I used to spend 5 hours a day on the phone with couriers," he said, rough voice trembling with memory. "Now I get home before dark. My wife says I'm less angry." The audience laughed. He continued, "I didn't think this could work. But my team, my family, knows Agiliza saved us real pain." Questions came, harder ones: scalability, security, regulation. I answered each, voice stronger with every answer, each technical detail offered not defensively but with quiet pride. At the end, Teresa joined me. We looked out at a room that was no longer skeptical. The applause rolled, and for a moment shame dropped away entirely, replaced by something softer, a warmth I'd braced myself against for years. The most powerful moment came after, back in the mingling crowd. I circled the room, greeting clients and partners, pressing hands. I found Layet by the refreshment table, 2 beers in his hand. He was older, his hair thinning, the playful arrogance softened by years. "Never thought I'd see the day, Primo," he said, his eyes uncertain. "You really pulled it off." Even Diego approached, mouth pulled into a grudging half-smile. "Didn't think you had it in you, Lucas. Guess I was wrong." I took a breath. "Everyone's wrong sometimes, Tio," I said. It wasn't cruel, just true, but my real reckoning was with my parents. I found them in a corner by the window looking out at the city. My mother's hands fidgeted with her bag strap. "It really works?" she asked, not quite believing. "It does," I said. "Hundreds of deliveries a day go right because of us." My father was silent a long moment. I waited, letting the past fill the space between us. Finally, he put his hand on my shoulder, just as he had the night of the old dinner table. This time his grip was gentle, without the weight of disappointment. "I see you, Philho," he said, more than ever. I held his look, understanding how much that admission cost him. We left the event late, walking slowly through the centro. The city felt changed, as if all the noise were now a song I recognized. My mother squeezed my arm, nervous and proud, sharing small observations about people she'd met, about how the staff treated her kindly. We passed an old delivery man loading his cargo bike. I greeted him by name, and he grinned, lifting a box. "Thanks for making my job easier, Dr. Lucas." My mother's breath caught then, a soft sound like understanding arriving. That night we returned to my parents' apartment. Old cousins hugged me with new respect. Diego asked about investing in our next round. Layet asked about internships. My mother hovered near the stove, fussing over the food, her smile never far away. My father poured me a drink, then raised his glass, eyes shining with pride. Shame had started here, curled up in the small corners of these rooms. Now courage filled the spaces between chairs and laughter. I knew their doubts might never vanish completely, but I also knew they saw me, not the child with wild ideas, but the man who'd built something lasting against the odds. Later, when I left for my own apartment, the city was calm, wet stone shining under lamplight. I walked through the empty streets, breathing in the scent of distant rain and roasted coffee. For the first time in years, Sao Paulo truly felt like mine, a city that had mocked me, tested me, and at last allowed me to come home. Courage isn't the absence of shame. It's learning to move through it, one hard step at a time, until you can open the door and, without apology, return.